I'm assuming most of you have slid before. Whether in Destiny 2 or some other game, sliding is a fundamental part of any FPS's gameplay vocabulary. It's used to duck and cover, to get out of the line of fire, or to jump into it faster. It's used to quickly navigate smaller areas, and it's used for some crazy shenanigans. I'm personally a fan of sliding in Destiny 2, along with the abilities that come with it, whether that be Speed Booster giving it an extra push, or the portal modifiers that allow it to spawn stasis crystals or make a solar explosion. So in today's video, I want to beg the question, what is the furthest you can slide on every class? I swear this ends up being interesting, and I learned quite a bit about sliding and the mechanics involved that I plan on sharing, so stick around as we deep dive and test how far you can slide in Destiny 2. The video will be split up between all three classes, so if you only play on one class, feel free to jump around, or if you're curious, watch them all. But subscribe and let me share some basic tech. Before I dive deep into class specifics, I want to talk about the things that all of the classes have access to that increase and buff slide distance. And to start that discussion, I need to talk about raw slide distance. For all classes, the raw slide distance is roughly 4 meters. I think this number is more like 4.5, just due to some minor discrepancies in my slide timing and some stuff with Speed Booster, which is the first actual buff we should talk about, Speed Booster. To get Speed Booster, all you have to do is be amplified and then sprint around for a little bit and voila. Bonus sprint speed and slide distance and DR. Although the sprint speed is marginal and mostly just an FOV boost, the slide distance can certainly be felt across the board. Just Speed Booster will take your slide up to 9 meters, which is a very good boost. And it's also the reason I want to say the base slide is 4.5 meters, because it just makes sense for Speed Booster to be double that. Next is Enhanced Athletics. It's a mod on your boots. Generally, if you've ever tried to go fast in the game, you've put this on. And if not, now you know. The mod does stack, although with diminishing returns, which is fine, because for the most part, you won't be running more than one. These do, to my testing, not buff the slide distance. They absolutely buff your jump and your movement speed, but for some reason they don't touch the slide at all. Thirdly, it's movement exotics. Although not every class has stompies, they all have their own version that buffs either sprint speed or slide distance. For future reference, these mean the same thing when it comes to sliding. That wording is also why enhanced athletics don't work, and neither do a few other things. But back on topic, every movement exotic takes the raw slide out to 7 meters, whether it's T-steps, stompos, or dune marchers. Fourthly, armor bonuses. There are 2 sets to my knowledge that buff slide distance. Seeing as one of them is locked behind the comp playlist and I just don't play PvP, that was a no-go for me. But luckily, the standard Crucible armor set also buffs slide distance the same amount as the comp set, just with a much more complicated trigger. For the comp set, it's just there. You always have that 33% slide distance buff. For the Triumphal Anthem set, you have to deal weapon damage. Then you get the 33% slide distance buff for 3 seconds. So yes, I braved the unnaturally long queue line for Team Scorched on all 3 classes just to farm out this armor, and when paired with nothing but raw slide, this brings it up to 7 meters, matching the movement exotics. Fifthly, lightweight frame swords. They're back in the meta now, what with the Equilibrium sword and the SRL sword both getting eager edge. And these things do just flat out increase movement across the board. Plus, I think they look really cool and just feel great compared to other swords. From a movement perspective, from all my testing, these bring raw slide up to 5 meters. Sixthly, origin traits. Guys, I did not do a deep dive into every origin trait for this. I'm sure you can either do your own research or just not use them. I only tested one origin trait, and that is the text balance stock. And I only tested that one because it was just in my inventory. Allegedly, while it is procced, you get enhanced movement speed while aiming down sights, which normally is just a solid all-rounder perk because you get locked out of certain movements while aiming down sights, but you do not get locked out of sliding, being able to ADS for the entire duration of a slide. I did test this a couple times and it did seemingly buff raw slide from 4 meters up to 5 meters while aiming down sights, which looking back on I think is definitely a user error on slide timing, but even if it was a real buff, it's not worth it to run this over the sword. Seventhly, the perks Killing Wind and Assassin's Blade. Neither of these buff raw slide distance at all, which is a scam, I know. But again, it just comes down to wording. Assassin's Blade reads, sword final blows boost movement speed and damage. And Killing Wind reads, final blows grant increased mobility, range, and handling. As I said earlier, slide movement is only increased when it is either directly mentioned or when sprint speed is increased, so these will be discounted. And lastly, I wanted to briefly touch on Tractor Cannon. Famously, Tractor Cannon has a buff called the Scientific Method, which reads, damaging an opponent temporarily increases speed and handling. Again, this does nothing to sliding, just jumping and walking, although it does seem to buff sprint speed as well. Just another tragic loss for the sliding community. If you can think of anything else that could increase slide distance, please feel free to comment it, although I'm not sure how useful it will be thanks to some info I will share in a bit. As a Warlock main, I really wish we had more stuff that directly improved the slide, but we really don't. It's just T-steps. I did test every super to see if maybe that made the slide better, but not only did none of them buff the slide distance at all, I found that there are only 2 Warlock supers that you can even slide in. Not counting well, of course, and that is Song of Flame and Dawnblade. Everything else is either a damage super or a super that you aren't allowed to sprint in. Luckily though, we can still slide pretty darn far when we put all of the common technology together. Using the max amount of slide related things you can trigger at once for Warlock, you hit 11 meters, which is almost 3 times as far as a raw slide, so pretty solid still. Although it doesn't make any sense for it to be only 11 meters. If we take a look at the values of each of those parts broken down, you'll see that the final number doesn't quite add up. Okay, so raw slide is 4 meters. T-steps boosts it up to 7 meters, so a plus 3 meters. Speed booster takes raw slide from 4 meters to 9 meters, which is a plus 5 meters. The Triumphal Anthem set takes it from 4 to 7 meters, another plus 3 meters. And even just the lightweight frame sword takes it from 4 meters to 5 meters, giving us an additional plus 1. If you add all those numbers up, we should be getting an additional 12 meters on top of our base 4 for a total of a 16 meter slide. Pretty strange. Maybe it's diminishing returns or something. Anyway, let's move on. Unfortunately, I don't have much more to touch on for Warlock other than its movement exotic, which is basically nothing unique, so we'll move on to Hunter. Much like the Warlock, I also tested every super on Hunter to see if any of them made you slide further. And yeah, actually the Strand one, whose name I am forgetting. It moves raw slide up to 7 meters, which would be a very cool addition to our collection if not for a few things. The first is that it is near impossible to use with the armor set, as the set needs weapon damage to get the boosted slide, which then only lasts for 3 seconds. So doing damage, popping the super, and then sprinting enough to slide, it just doesn't seem likely, especially if you also need to get speed booster, which goes away if you pop the super. And then if you want speed booster again before you slide, you will certainly not be able to keep the slide buff from the armor set. But it gets worse from there, since being in this super you can't wield weapons, and therefore can't hold the lightweight sword for that slide boost. And just when you thought there couldn't possibly be anything else, the super also cancels out the slide distance bonus from Stompies, making it almost impossible to stack the slide distance from this super with anything. So yeah, this super is a no-go, but still pretty cool that it buffs slide. And because it's a no-go, Hunter has nothing unique that puts it on top of Warlock. So the final max slide distance is still 11 meters using the same technique of speed booster, armor set, movement exotic, and lightweight sword. Again though, this obviously should push the slide further than 11 meters, but still, it doesn't work. Diminishing returns is seeming likely. On to Titan. So Titan is obviously the king of sliding. They have been ever since the game dropped thanks to Dune Marchers making them turn into a crucible menace over the years. Bungie only cemented this fact when Stasis dropped in Beyond Light and Titans could get their hands on the Cryoclasm aspect. Sliding with Cryoclasm equipped takes you a whopping 9 meters, tying speed booster for the largest slide bonus from a single source. And when paired with Dune Marchers, you get a constant passive 10-meter slide that you never even have to think about activating. Now if we pair all that with speed booster and the sword, how far can we go? Still 11 meters. What about the 4-piece instead of speed booster? Also 11 meters. Okay, how about we go deep into the vault and do all of these things plus slide with the Season of the Risen artifact, which paired with raw slide takes you all the way up to 10 meters of slide distance. And somehow, with all of this combined, we still only hit 11 meters max. So obviously, with all these tests and things that should clearly increase slide distance but don't, we can assume that the game caps out sliding at 11 meters. I don't know why this is, and frankly, I don't have any guesses. To anyone who does know, please share in the comments. If it's like a coding reason or just a random number picked back in the day as a cap that they figured no one would ever hit. Just out of curiosity, I tried sliding with the other two relics that appear in this mode, and the Vogue relic doesn't seem to buff sliding too much, if at all, maybe a meter. But the Scythe from Season of the Haunted does in fact affect slide distance negatively. It resets the slide back down to its raw distance of 4 meters, no matter how many slide buffs you have stacked up, which is pretty funny when you're used to sliding far. Off the top of my head, I don't know anything else that negatively affects slide distance, but again, if you do, let me know in the comments. So, we discovered the max slide distance on every class. That's pretty cool, I suppose. I hope you guys learned something new and potentially feel the tug to test beyond what I did and find some new interactions I didn't even think of. Hopefully though, you guys have the confidence and skill to get the comp set so you don't have to do any dumb activation triggers to get that 33% slide distance buff. If you made it this far, thank you for watching and consider subscribing for more content that is either like this or better. Maybe rarely worse, but we don't talk about those uploads. If you feel like helping out the channel, consider leaving a like and sharing the video, as those things do boost my standing in the algorithm. If you have feedback or more information to share, please let me know in the form of a comment, because I do read and respond to every comment on every post and video. I will get to yours eventually, don't even worry about it. If you want a more personal form of connection to really scratch that parasocial itch, join the Discord. I'm very active in there and we do lots of fun stuff and are generally very chill. And on a side note, the server layout is very easy to understand. We should be starting a new challenge around when this video goes up, so if you would like to be in a video, join up and start on the challenges right now. The link will be in the description. That's all the shilling I have to do for now until next week or something. So on that note, I'll see you next week, if not sooner. Bye!